from the high desert and the great American Southwest.
This is Dark Matter, and I'm Art Bell. I'm going to sort of stop the phone numbers for now because we're going to start the show. Internationally known contactee, experiencer, author, and lecturer Dr. Jonathan Reed, whose stated articles have appeared both on international and domestic television, radio, and internet programs, such as Infinito, I hope it is, channel, the Discovery Channel, MX Costa Rica, Peru, Dreamland, Televisa, and the BBC, speaking in South and Latin America, Europe, and Russia. And he's done some touring since the show, huh? Along with speaking many times with me. He put renowned radio talk show host Art Bell, me, as well as many others in countries all around the world. His story of personal alien contact is truly one of the most widely speculated, one of the most controversial, and most debated and compelling cases of our time. Having some of the best evidence ever collected relating to the reality of alien or extraterrestrial intelligent life forms interacting with humankind, all of us. His case has also been featured in varied ET articles, television programs, literature, numerous publications around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jonathan Reed. Great to hear your voice, buddy. I am hearing it right.
Happy Roswell, Mr. Bell.
There you are. Just say Roswell's.
Roswell.
That really does it, Roswell's. So, how the heck are you, Dr. Reed?
Boy, you got a few days?
I got a few hours.
I'm doing good now, and we'll get into some of those details later. But I'm doing well, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be back on with you.
Well, I know that your story is wildly controversial, but I also know, and the audience should know, I don't know if we'll bring them all on, but we've got like 3 more witnesses to what you're about to tell us, as incredible as it's going to sound to this audience. And we have to remember there's a lot of new folks, you know, Sirius XM people that have never heard the show and certainly never heard you and never heard your story. So we're going to go through the original story because it's so, I guess, out of this world. Is a fair comment?
Well, it definitely warrants some time to consider all the steps that I went through, because I always say, look, if I hadn't have experienced this myself, I wouldn't have believed it either.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, of course, I'll just wait. I want to ask you how the years have been in reaction to the story, but not now. Let's do the story so we get it out there.
Okay.
All right,
well,
where did it begin? How did it begin?
This all happened back in August 15th, 1996. That was a Tuesday in Seattle, Washington, near Seattle, Washington. I had gone for a hike, a day hike, with my dog, Susie, who was a 7-year-old golden retriever.
Is that a fairly common thing for you to do, to take a hike in the woods?
Sure. To get out of the city, which is where I was living at the time, about, a 45 to 50-minute drive to a beautiful, pristine area near Snoqualmie Pass, about 60 miles from east of Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we just got in my Jeep, and my dog and I, as we did so many times, and drove to the mountains and parked where we normally parked. And
okay, at this point, you're alone, right?
Pardon?
You're alone, right?
Yeah,
just you and your dog.
Just me and my dog.
Okay.
In the afternoon. This was, at that time, it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And so we just got out, and like I said, it's the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, is a beautiful evergreen area that has lots of trails and old logging trails, and that's essentially what this was. We had been there many times before, casually walking, occasionally seeing some wildlife. Early in the day when we started walking, we saw some deer And this was common, and you could take your dog off the leash and let her run, and she could just have all.
I know,
that
in the Northwest is gorgeous, Doctor. It's just a gorgeous place to live, and when the weather is nice and it's not raining, then, and particularly in August. I mean, August 15, middle of August must have been really
October
nice.
15.
Oh, October.
Yeah.
October. Well, it was getting a little nippy by then.
Well, it can get crisp late in the afternoon, but we have some late summers. And this happened to be a very warm, late summer day. It was a little bit overcast, but for the most part, very, very nice fall day.
Okay.
So we just continued to walk down this old logging trail, occasionally stopping to chase raccoons or look at some of the wildlife and just casually walking. And about an hour and a half into this walk, my dog, Susie, who took off running, scampering through the woods, which was not uncommon. She would either chase squirrels or raccoons or something. But it was her freedom. It was her time to, escape the leash from the city.
Sure.
And she was a great dog and followed direction well. She would come when I called her, and she would stay next to me when I would say stay. So she was pretty obedient. But this time she ran off, and she was barking, and I didn't think too much of it at first. And then I could hear her barking, the sound of her barking change. It sounded more like she was in a little bit of distress.
Right.
Or maybe had found some kind of animal that was backed up against a tree or something. And again, I didn't panic. I figured, okay, well, she'll, get out of there in a moment. And Susie was a pretty big dog. She was about 80 pounds. So, big golden retriever. So as I continued to walk, and I couldn't see her, but I could hear her, and it sounded like she was probably 150 yards up the trail.
It's not too hard to hear when a dog is in distress because the bark kind of is a little whine comes with it.
Right, and at this point it started to change almost to a yelp. So I knew something had happened. Something was different. You get to know your dog's, voice. And I just knew something had changed. So at that point, I increased my speed and hurried along, and I still couldn't find her because the underbrush in this area is very dense, and there's a very heavy tree canopy, and I could not see her, but I could hear her, and I was getting closer and closer to where she was. So at that point, I figured, okay, she's probably either treed a raccoon or maybe even a small wildcat, because we have those in the area. And if that were the case,
she'd be in trouble.
She could be very, very seriously in trouble. So I set my backpack down, and I grabbed a branch that was laying on the side of the path that was the size of a long baseball bat, and so I just picked it up, and I figured, okay, I'm going to go and probably untangle her from a skunk or a raccoon or something. And I ran forward, and still listening to her sound of her yelping now.
Sure.
And I couldn't see her, but I knew I was close, and I just ran over this little ridge and kind of jumped down through the underbrush. And all of a sudden I saw her engaged with what looked to me at the time like a small size dimension figure, very dark, almost black, and it was the size of a child. It was mostly the size of a child, but what I was seeing...
God, my memory is awful. I don't remember this from the first story. You're saying you saw a small
small being.
Not fully. When you say dimensional, does that mean not solid? As
No,
in...
it was solid. It was solid, but the darkness of the area, and at the moment I saw it, it was shaking. It was vibrating like a paint shaker. So you could not really accurately see the outline, the exact outline.
And now that I remember, shaking like a paint shaker, kind of
vibrating, so that the
very quickly.
Yeah, extremely quickly, so that all I could barely see was the outline. But my dog, it appeared to me at first that my dog had this thing by the arm. And I yelled, "Susie, let go." And then I realized, and this is what everyone needs to try to remember. From the second that I first stepped down to see this scene, it was approximately 10 seconds.
Right. And a lot of times in real life, when something this incredible is happening to you, time kind of slows down.
Oh, exactly. And even describing it doesn't give it justice to how fast it happened. And anyway, what I saw was my dog it looked like my dog with her mouth was attached to the forearm of this thing. And they were both vibrating, and my dog was yelping. But then all of a sudden I saw clearly that it wasn't my dog that had a hold of this. It was the arm of the thing
that had
actually extended, if you can imagine, part of your arm molding itself on the head of my dog.
Oh, Lord. You mean kind of disappearing into the head of your dog?
Grabbing the outside of the head of my dog, and then before my very eyes, I saw my dog being torn apart at the jaw. I mean, her body was ripped from her jaw down to her backbone. There was blood everywhere. And at this moment, this thing stopped and looked at me. It stopped shaking just for a second and looked at me with these big, dark eyes, and then turned back to my dog, and my dog started to literally implode, literally disintegrate into what looked like a hole in her body. I mean, it literally started to just get smaller, like if you can imagine something vacuuming something up from the inside out. Her body started to fall into this dark space, and then all that was left was this white, gray ash that fell to the ground. And at this point, I jumped forward and hit this thing as hard as I could in the head with this bat, trying to kill it. And it screamed, and I screamed too.
You had a bat?
Well, I had picked up this branch.
A branch.
You're right. Along the way, I had just
I got you. Okay. In other words, you were expecting probably to be fighting off some animal hurting your dog.
Right, exactly, to detangle her from some kind of animal.
Got it.
But instead, there was this thing tearing my dog apart, and all I remember is the insane feeling of, I have to stop this. I have to stop her from dying. I have to, and it was way too late for that.
Oh,
but I had
to stop. Understand that. I so understand that. How long
like
have you had you? How long? Oh, of course, yes. How long had you had her?
Well, I had her about 6 years.
Oh,
she was about 7. She was an orphan. Showed up on my doorstep.
Not everybody listening is an animal person. I am. For me, it's cats. Doesn't matter. Dogs. If you have animals, they're part of your family. That's all. They're like a member
absolutely.
of your...
Yeah. They are. In fact, sometimes they're a better part of your family.
Even after all this time, I can hear it in your voice. The way you're remembering this is so visual and so detailed that, I don't know, I can just hear it in your voice that this is what you saw. And it's an incredible thing to have seen.
It killed me. Art, when I saw this happen, I mean, it literally tore me apart too.
Of course.
And, you know, but it even became more insane to me because the second I hit this thing, trying to kill it, and I wanted to kill it, it screamed, I screamed, I think in triumph of trying to stop what I was witnessing, but I almost missed it. I mean, I'm not an athlete. I'm 190 pounds, and you know, but I almost didn't hit it. But as I struck its head, it started to fall down. The branch had breached its skull. It had broken its skull.
So this thing was definitely solid, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you were able to, and so you smashed it, huh?
Oh, well, and you've seen the pictures, and there's pictures now on
Okay,
Dark
let's
Matter.
stop here. Let's stop here and send people to artbell.com. That's the actual website, artbell.com. And we've got, you want to describe what's up there, where we should look, and what we should be looking at for this part of the story anyway?
Well, I don't have a computer on in front of me, but I'll tell you what I sent you.
Sure.
I sent you 3 different pictures of this creature. We'll call him a creature at the moment. And this was after I had knocked it down and laid it on a thermal blanket that I had in my pack. But you can see its head, you can see its neck. It's very old looking. It has veins and eyelids and a mouth and no ears. It has ear canals. If you expand the one side view, you can actually see the ear canals.
Everybody better go take a look. Artbell.com, and he actually has pictures of the creature. I would say this. The second one is my favorite, or is it the first? There's 3. Oh no, the third one is my favorite.
Now let me just say something here because it's important. These pictures were taken prior to digital photography. Mm-hmm. In 1996, we were still using film. This is 35 millimeter slide film and negative film.
By the way, Doctor, hold on. I want to bring something up. Mm-hmm. I know it's 35 millimeter. And the pictures that you sent tonight, particularly of the obelisk, we haven't even come to that yet, but back when you took that photograph, they were better quality than they are now. The obelisk was so clear that people got upset about it. And that was 35 millimeter photography, right?
Yes, 35 millimeter, and a good camera, good Nikon camera.
What happened to the better quality photographs that you originally supplied to us?
Well, when I was told today that I needed to send some additional things, I contacted some of my team, and they sent you what I asked them. As far as original, they're all original. Some are just maybe a little more clear than others.
Yeah, I remember the obelisk picture, which was really, really clear.
Yeah, well,
and it was so clear that people complained about it.
I've got, let me just continue the story and say I took approximately 4 rolls of film. I took everything I had left because, I was laying on the ground. The second I hit this thing, I got sick. I got instantly, violently sick. A crippling sickness that dropped me to the ground, to my knees.
Can you describe nausea, or what do you mean by sick?
So sick, no control of my bowels or my bladder, or throwing up to the point of bleeding, gasping for breath, and not having any muscle control in my body at all.
At this point, the creature is itself on the ground next to you?
Laying, as far as I was concerned, dead on the ground within about 2.5 to 3 feet from me, and I was now laying face to face with it.
Oh, God. And you were sick as a dog. How long did that last?
Probably about 2.5 hours. I couldn't get up. I would try to get up. I would fall back down. I would try to slow down my breathing, and I would be gasping for breath. I felt like something had instantly hit me, had overcome me, had taken over my whole body at the second that the impact of the branch hit his skull. And again, this didn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any logical sense. Prior to this, I was feeling just fine. It was just a normal day. But the second...
Something transmitted to you through that...
Yes. And the closest thing that I can relate it to, that other people have since identified to me, is the same feeling that people have said when they had some kind of radiation poisoning.
Wow.
So this was, and when I say a crippling sickness, I mean unbelievably crippling, to the point where I actually thought I was going to die within the first 5 or 10 minutes.
I believe that. I mean, if you were down for hours, couple hours...
well, I just couldn't get up.
I'm with you. You would think you're dying. Sure, that's common...
I was crawling. The ground, the air felt different. It felt